Hi, everybody. So welcome to Caribbean Masterclasses. I'm very excited to have all of you here. And of course, with our very special guest this evening. Yay! You all can't see it, but we are at the fabulous Caribbean Club. And a special thank you to the staff and the team at Caribbean Club for hosting us today. They've been a great supporter of Caribbean Masterclasses from season 1. Our special guest today. He joined the civil service of the Cayman Islands at the age of 16, started in the immigration department and rose through the ranks until in 2012, I believe, he was appointed as the deputy governor and the head of the civil service for the Cayman Islands. Very exciting position because that means he oversees the entire civil service. And that's what, 3,000 plus? 4,000 plus. Individuals under his remit. And I can say that I'm very fortunate to have been in the civil service, just ended last year. But one of the things that I admired about our special guest today is that he wasn't just focused on the excellence of the delivery of the service that we gave and just creating a world-class civil service, but he was very much focused on a very holistic civil service, well-being and healthy civil service. So there's a deputy governor run that he hosts every year, which is also given back to the community through the funds raised for this. He is married to Miss Nuvia, has 2 children, and I have to say a special shout out to Miss Nuvia. Thank you so much for letting us have him as our guest this evening because he's celebrating his 30th wedding anniversary. Please help me say congrats. So our deputy governor, Mr. FRANZ MANDERSON, welcome.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, and good evening to all our listening audience.
So I know we can't see you, but we will definitely look out for your comments. And we want to encourage you to take this opportunity to interact with the deputy governor because we're dealing with a very special topic, and it's leadership. So you and I actually had a really good conversation as we were prepping for this. And one of the things you talked about in terms of your leadership style was becoming the leader you knew you would want to follow. And that's what started the theme for this, because leadership has been something, I want to say even more from last year with everything that happened in COVID with the pandemic. People have been watching leadership, global leadership. And then when we had all of the horrific cases of violence against Black Americans, there was even a question of leadership in churches and in civil groups, etc. So this idea of leadership and who are the leaders to take us forward is a huge question, but also for us as individuals, the leaders we want to become. So you started at Big Moon, and what did you observe early at that time in terms of leadership that even maybe started to form your ideas of what you would want to be if you became a leader? And I mean, did you have aspirations of leadership then?
Not at 16.
Okay.
My first job was a filing clerk. So after about 2 weeks doing that, I knew I didn't want to remain a filing clerk, that I would love to do something else, more of a challenge.
Right.
But immediately, even with just doing filing, the lady who oversaw what I was doing and gave me the instructions, it was very clear. And that immediately really hit home to me, just the importance of, no matter whether it is a very simple task, is giving those clear instruction,
Right.
and saying what are the outcomes that you want to achieve. So I wasn't understanding it that way at 16.
Right.
But today I look back on it and reflect on the importance of the training and the importance of focusing on outcomes. What is it that you would like to achieve at the end of the day?
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I think around 18 that I really looked at my career and said, you know, where do I want to go? I am absolutely enjoying my work. You know, one day maybe I could become the head of immigration. So I set my sights on that. I gave myself a target of before I was 39,
Mhm.
and I achieved it.
Okay, there
But
we go.
that was a lot of hard work, some luck, but a lot of hard work, dedication. It meant going back to university, or going to university to develop my academic qualifications, and making those sacrifices. But it was, you know, it was the right thing to do. So leadership came early for me, but it was something that I really was sort of. I think I got forced into it a lot. It wasn't something that I naturally progressed to, but I have, you know, really enjoyed it.
And it's interesting that you say you were pushed into it. So that means that there were people who were watching you,
That's right.
watching your work and the way that you were working and giving you the little nudge.
That's right.
And I think that that's, you know, you straight out of the gate, ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking copious notes because there have been some nuggets already to remind us about leadership. And that's an important element. The fact that leadership is you're being able to identify future leaders.
That's right.
Future leaders.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, I also enjoyed the fact that clear instructions to focus on the outcome. Sometimes for myself, I learned that I think I'm given a clear instruction, but it's not that clear. So the idea of making sure that people understood, starting from the very beginning, no matter where you are in the organization, that you can.
Purpose is a big thing. So, I mean, my job was simply filing the cards that people used to fill out at the airport. You know, when you arrive, you know, you filled out a white card and there was a duplicate pink slip. And we kept the white one and gave you the pink one. And then when you were leaving, you returned the pink slip. And I was like, okay, I'm just putting two cards together. But it was made very clear to me that is how we are tracking who is in the island and who has left. And if we don't do this, we will not have an idea of the persons who have not left and who need to be identified. So once I knew what my purpose, what was the outcome of what I was trying to achieve, even that very boring job, and it was boring, I understood the importance of it and the need for me to be meticulous, to get it right. And even for a 16-year-old, I was shown the big picture. And that really motivated me to do my job to the very best of my ability.
And you know, again, you're hitting something that is so instrumental because we can be in organizations and there's some staff who understand the big picture and others who don't because it's never been relayed that something as simple as those two cards together have such an important outcome to the overall goal of the organization. And leadership requires us to make sure that everybody understands their job is important and feels their job is important, because at that point you began to feel like you were really contributing, weren't you?
That's right. I was keeping my island safe. I was tracking, being able to tell, the officers who were there, who was here illegally, who had left, and that was important. It was important for our country. So I could feel that I was giving back, that I was being part of a solution.
And that's even important for those of us who have interns. So we have, the high school students and the university students, even with us for a few weeks, for them to go, okay, they're not just filing. We love them for the filing. I won't lie. They have to have purpose.
They're achieving something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it also then makes them look at that organization differently as well, because maybe they walked in and they never had an idea of this might be a possibility for me?
I mean, spending time on the why is important. So you could just give an instruction and expect someone to carry out. But what I found is even spend 10 minutes explaining why is it, you're doing what you're doing. It really makes a difference. And that's when you get your buy-in. And that's when people are motivated to do a good job. So focusing on why is very important.
Now, you have had a long distinguished career throughout the civil service.
Yeah.
So when you look back at that, so you started at 16 with the manager at the time who gave you clear instructions, but, who were the leaders that really influenced you? Well, it could be for good or for bad, but who really shaped you?
I had so many, and that is, I think why leadership is so important to me, because I am the product of good leadership. I had my first supervisor when I was appointed as an immigration officer at 17 was this amazing lady who instilled immediately work ethic and punctuality. All right. 5 a.m. meant 5 a.m., not 5:15, or if you were required to be to work, then be on time. And she, really instilled the work ethic in terms of, we have a job to do, we're going to get it done. And if it's 5 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours, we're going to get it done. And that really brought home to me the importance of that work ethic. I had seen it all around me. I saw it with my family. I saw my mom working long hours, but until I actually did it myself, I really understood, really what it takes to be good at something, really what it takes to be part of a solution and to contribute back to your country, to work hard for your department. But and this is I think probably one of the biggest lessons was, she taught me the importance of getting noticed, right?
Okay.
And so there are 6 members of our team, and promotion time comes around. Who gets promoted? And it's probably the person who has got noticed for the right reasons.
Okay.
Not getting noticed for being late or not having that work ethic. But she instilled that in me and saying, Franz, I see you have potential, but you need to be noticed. And I made sure I was noticed. So I made rules for myself that I would always beat my supervisor to work, that I would always be on time, that I would never turn down an assignment, no matter how difficult or challenging it was. That I talk about my wife's marriage for 30 years. We dated 8 years before then, and I missed so many events and movie nights and dances and all of those things because I wanted to get noticed, and I wanted to be the person that got that promotion. And she really instilled that in me. In that you have to get noticed if you want to move up the ladder. Get noticed for the right reasons. And if you're willing to sacrifice, to dedicate yourself, to have the right attitude,
yes,
it can happen.
I like that. You set rules for yourself in terms of getting noticed. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why we started this masterclass on time. Because you see, our deputy governor says punctuality is still from the beginning, can't be no waiting. And so I just like that idea of, you looked at your environment.
That's right.
And you decided, okay, this is what I will do for the right reasons to be noticed. But I'm going to throw a spanner in this because, this conversation is free flowing. What about those folk who think sometimes that, they're doing a lot and doing work, but yet they're not being noticed? Because sometimes part of the difficulty within some organizations is the opportunities for promotion to be limited.
That's right.
So what do you say to those folk?
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of what happened to me, a lot of it was luck, a lot of it was because I dedicated myself. But again, it was also having the leaders above me that was willing to take that chance on me and was willing to give me the opportunities, which is, again, something that I have tried to now do as head of the civil service, and we'll come to that later on, I'm sure. But yeah, so some of us can be frustrated because we are doing everything and we're doing everything right. You're doing everything I just said, but the opportunities are not coming. I mean, my advice to you is just to continue, do not be deterred in your quest. So there were times when I had gotten to where I was very comfortable in the rank that I was holding, and that I was not challenged, and I was saying, okay, Franz, you know, what's next? I think it's time for you to move, but I wasn't moving. And it can become a bit frustrating, but continue to focus on the big picture. You know, this is what I want to achieve. It may not come in the time that I would like it to come, but it will get there. And you're doing the right thing by giving that 110% to your organization.
Okay. So that's really good advice for those of you who are thinking, and I'm doing everything right, still not. Just to keep at it, just to keep at it. Sometimes you don't know who's watching, but it speaks to those of us in leadership positions as well, what we do to motivate and inspire people to keep going, even if we know there's not an immediate opportunity. But also, does it beg itself to say that we encourage them to also seek out other opportunities as well to grow?
Exactly. So the thing that I knew that I needed was to go to university, because I knew my opportunities were going to be limited with just a high school education. So by me going into law and going to law school, that opened other doors for me as well. So again, rather than sort of waiting on the organization to notice me, I went about trying to improve my chances of success.
Right.
And that's very important.
Okay. So you knew you had to step away.
That's right.
And take the time and do the professional development. Yes. So I'm going to ask you one more question, because I think we have some questions for you, so we can pose some from our audience. So now that you took on this role, going through the ranks, and now you've taken on this role as deputy governor, and then you're head of the civil service. Was there any personal challenge that you set for yourself in this role?
Yeah, you know, day one, I walked into the office, and truthfully, I knelt and said a little prayer, because, you know, this was not the big plan for me to become deputy governor.
Okay.
I wanted to be head of immigration for the rest of my life.
Oh, okay.
But that was my dream job.
Right.
But it happened, and I was not going to turn down the opportunities and put myself forward when I saw that I had that opportunity. But day one, I took time to reflect. And I think as leaders, there are times for us to do that, is to just give yourself 20 minutes and just reflect on where we are today and how did we get here, and give thanks, you know, because a lot of us has achieved really outstanding things in our time, and we have to be thankful for that. But the number one thing that I wanted to achieve as deputy governor was to take care of the team.
Love it. Love it.
I knew that if I took care of the team, if I inspired and motivated them to do some amazing things would happen. I knew that they would take care of the customers. But I said, I want every civil servant to know that we care about them. We care about their, you mentioned health and wellness. We cared about their upward mobility, their training. We cared about their overall well-being, that we were giving them the tools to do their job, that we were giving them advancement opportunities, succession planning. It was those things that I really wanted, because like I said, I have seen great leadership. And of course, during my time, I have seen some not so good leadership. But I wanted civil servants to be exposed to great leadership.
I love that. So the idea of inspiring people, and in terms of just showing up and how they show up so that they can serve, because you know, in the civil service, we're serving our country, serving the community. So your idea of making sure that you take care of them so they can take care of the country.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And you know, if someone is going through a really tough time, and they are not getting the support from the organization, and then we put them in front of a customer. They're human. They're not going to provide that superior support or that exemplary customer service experience if they're worrying about what's happening at home, or they're worrying about not being able to pay their bills. They can't provide that exemplary customer service. So take care of the team, they will take care of the customers. And I really wanted that to be one of the things. If people don't remember me for anything else, I would like to be remembered that while I was head of the civil service, the people in the civil service felt cared for and was given some amazing opportunities to move up the ladder like I did.
I love that too, because one of the things that we see over the years is this discussion of leadership, the old school of processes first or people first, or the combination of the two. And more we're understanding that the leadership is going to take care of your people.
That's right.
Because then they will standing and do what they have to do.
That's right.
Because they feel cared. So we have some questions, sir. We have some questions. So let me see if I can grab them. So the first one is whether or not having a particular leadership style is important to you and the relevant ministries when recruiting. So what are you looking for when you are recruiting for folk in the civil service?
So we are looking for someone who has those same leadership abilities, in that they inspire and they motivate and they lead by example. I'm looking for people who care about the team.
Right.
I'm looking for people who have that fit, within our organization. So yes, experience and qualifications are great, but we also focus on the fit. Are you a good fit for our organization? And for example, when I am doing interviews and promotions, I'm looking for, do they have a proven track record of taking care of the team? Have they been doing those things? I don't believe in using the stick. I don't think that works. I don't think you don't beat people into submission. I don't believe in those things. If you inspire and motivate and you lead by example, people will follow you. If they understand the why and the purpose and why they're doing things, they will follow you, and they will go to great lengths to see that the organization succeed. I want civil servants to be proud to be civil servants. And I'm very pleased to say in our last staff survey, 87% of civil servants said they were proud to be a civil servant. That is an outstanding achievement for us. I'm proud to be a civil servant. I'm proud to serve my country. That means they will go the extra mile to make our organization successful.
And it's so funny because it was that started off the theme. And in fact, you said it was, I was like, I would love to use this as the theme, but then I was like, no. But you were like, it's the leader that I would go to battle for. I would die for this leader because I know that they have a vested interest in me. So even when you're looking at the recruitment, you're looking for the fit, but part of that fit is whether or not they will take care of their people.
That's right.
And that leads on to the other question, because it's the expectation of your senior leaders. What are some of the things that when you are with your senior leaders that you're looking for, you're telling them?
Yeah, and the message is clear. Take care of the team. As much as that is, so in our last leadership meeting, for example, we have a new government coming in, and it is a very unsettling time within the civil service. People are moving around. People that have been working in one ministry now is going to work somewhere else.
Right.
So again, the question was, what are we doing to make sure that all of these moves are being done with the necessary care, consultation, communication? Because again, we want people to see that I am moving, but you know what? I understand the reason why I'm moving. My subject matter has gone, so I need to now move somewhere else. Communication, explaining, spending that extra 5 minutes. Here's what's happening. Here's why you need to move. That communication is paramount.
So it actually goes back to your very first point. It's the clear instructions, or as you say, the clear communications that you give to people,
That's right.
so that they understand, it's nothing highfalutin.
That's right.
Because sometimes we do things and it's very highfalutin and people still don't get it, but clearly understanding what's happening.
So people might not agree with what you're saying, but if you've explained to them why you're doing something or why you're making that decision, they might not agree with it, but at least they now have an understanding as to why you did it. As simple as that sounds.
Yeah.
Sometimes we as leaders gloss that over and just give an instruction and expect it to be followed.
And I think we are coming up with generations who ask questions.
Absolutely.
And back in the day, yes, you could get away with that, and then people might grumble on the side. But now we are finding our millennials and those coming after, all those generations coming after, that's not as, you have to spend some time.
Absolutely. Why is it important?
Why. So what has been your hardest lesson in leadership?
Well, I've had many. I've had many hard lessons. But I think one of the hard lessons for me is to focus on being first. So what I mean by that is, as the leader of an organization, one of your jobs is to think. And you can get caught up in the day-to-day activities that you're not getting time to think. And the leader should be looking at not what's going to be happening next week, but what is going to be one of the issues that we're going to face in 3 years' time.
Wow.
And how are we going to address that? And if
Yes.
we're really good, we can prevent that issue from happening. But it's a lot easier to be first.
It's so interesting that you say that, because sometimes in leadership, you really get caught, we call it in the weeds.
Right.
You get really tangled in the weeds. And the fact that you're saying the leader has to be in the place where you are forward thinking, what's happening 3 years from now, 5 years from now, where are we going? But then does that speak to what's happening with the rest of your team?
Right.
So that you can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is why, and folks, if you don't remember anything I said today, remember this: surround yourself with really good people, so that you can have that time to think. You really need that. You really need that time to think, and that is absolutely critical. And having those people around you that, first of all, have your back and are they are willing to go that extra mile for you, but that you have built a relationship of trust and confidence that they will get on with it, and you can spend a lot of time doing just the things that you need to do.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that personally, because sometimes I feel like I really need to step away and actually get into the mode where I'm being more strategic in
That's
terms of what are you doing. But then at the same time, you're thinking, oh boy, but the rest of the folk are struggling. But it goes back to this idea of, as a leader, you have to dedicate that time. So you went, you mentioned the 20 minutes reflection.
That's right.
Which is also that me time for you as a leader. So for all of us in leadership, we're going to have to know what it is to just build in the time where we are focusing on what needs to be done from a strategic level, and build that in every week. Maybe if we can fit that in every day.
So sometimes, listen, life get different things thrown at you. Right. So sometimes that 20 minutes that I'm thinking is on my ride home. Okay. Okay. So I'm not telling you that I'm fortunate enough to have that 20 minutes in the office at all the time, but I do try to spend that 20 minutes, every day, thinking about what's next, right, and trying to be first.
Being first. Now, remember to send us your questions. We're checking. Every time you see me lean forward, that's because I like to check what's been happening. Here we go. So we have a question here. In your role as the head of the civil service, what has been, one of the most difficult things for you to do?
Well, obviously, during COVID, that was the most difficult period for me.
Yeah.
I was in charge of our National Emergency Operations Center. I was there every day with the team. I didn't work from home. I couldn't work from home. You can't lead from home. I was there in the office with the team. But one of the most difficult things was to, sending some of my civil servants out to deal with COVID positive persons who were not being very nice. And, knowing that, so at immigration, I sent people out to conduct operations. I was with them, or I sent them out as I moved up the ladder. And I knew that they could be harmed. But in COVID, I knew that if I sent someone out and they got infected, then they could take it home to their families, and their families didn't ask for that. So those kind of decisions that we had to make that were absolutely necessary, those were some of the toughest decisions that I've made in my career. Because again, I cared for the team, so I made sure that they had all of the necessary PPE and all the things, the training, everything that they needed. But knowing that, and thinking that I may have to attend the funeral of a civil servant that I had sent out to do a job, that was on my mind a lot. And I'm so happy that that has never happened, thank God. But that was a tough time.
It's interesting that you share that, because even in the back of our minds, we don't think about that that weighs heavily on our leadership, because we see you all doing what you need to do, right? Making the decisions that were necessary. But sometimes we don't enter into the fact that on the back end, that was a source of stress for you.
Absolutely.
Every day, just knowing that that's where your team was going out.
That's right. And I'm so proud of the team. They did an amazing job, continues to do so today. That's why we're COVID free. That's why we can move around now freely, because people did take those risks, and people did do an amazing job. But again, I believe it's because they knew that we had their back, right, and they had our support, that they were able to achieve these things.
Okay. So that was a very good question. Keep those questions coming. Now, you talked about truth in leadership when we were talking in the background, and before, truth in leadership. Now, that's a big one.
Yeah, and it is something again that I learned again early in my career. I have seen leaders not be truthful to their staff in terms of how they are performing, or things that they're not doing correctly, or lifestyles that they're living. They sort of just leave it and push it to one side and hope that things change.
Right.
And I've seen when things didn't change, and I've seen some of my colleagues lose their jobs. I've seen my colleagues get themselves in trouble because their leader was not doing the things that I thought could be done to assist. Truth leadership means that you are telling the team the truth, no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard or no matter how badly you think they may react. You have that overriding responsibility as a leader to tell the truth. Now, the good news is, I read a book about, radical candor.
Okay.
So,
All right.
you can be very radical in what you're saying. But the key to it is that if I have built a relationship with you,
that's true,
of trust and confidence, and I do have that radical candor conversation with you, you know that FRANZ is coming from a good place, and that I genuinely care about you. And I'm not telling you these things because I don't like you, or I'm just having a bad day, so I'm taking my frustrations out on you.
Yeah.
So building that relationship with your team members, that when that hard conversation has to be had, that truthful conversation, they understand that you're coming from a good place. And if you ask me, one of the hard lessons that I've learned throughout my career is that the importance of that truth leadership.
So make a note, ladies and gentlemen, radical candor. I have made a note, radical candor. You say it's a book too.
It's a book,
all right. I can see people Googling right now, Googling radical candor. Okay, all right. So I know we have, let's see, we have another question for you. So what are the main lessons learned from the current world-class civil service strategy for the future?
Yes. I hope that's one of my students are asking that
I
question.
think so, because they're talking about the heads up to the Civil Service College. They're a team of great instructors providing challenging, useful courses. That's a good plug.
So, when we were developing our 5-year strategic plan,
Mhm,
and we were talking about vision, what is the vision?
mhm.
So we went through a number of iterations. Hundreds of civil servants gave us ideas, and they kept putting these vision statements to me, and I kept saying, no, I don't think that's what the staff are saying. And then finally, I got a world-class civil service, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That is what the staff has been saying, is that they want to be world-class. So what I have learned from that is that you have to have a bold vision. It needs to be very simple, a few words,
Mhm.
and then it has to come from the team.
Right.
This can't be FRANZ Manderson's plan or FRANZ Manderson vision. Yes, I can be the one that champions the vision, but you want everyone to buy into that vision.
Right.
But it has proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that this small little island with 65, 70,000 people can deliver a world-class civil service. And that has made me very proud when I see some of the amazing things that we have achieved. World-class things.
Okay. So we have a question from Mr. Joel Scott. I'm going to ask my tech team to just put it up again for me, please, so that we can see it, because I want to make sure that we get Joel's question in there. But before that, you said something interesting about balance. Now, we normally have this question because of the ladies. So they always, how do you balance family and the work, etc. But I don't think we ask the men this, because is it so much a question of balance for men as it is for females? What do you say? Is there a struggle for balance even for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And my children are grown. They're 29 and 24, so I don't have those issues. But I did early in my career, and it is so easy to just work till 9 o'clock every night. It is so easy. But I learned something from when I was going by articles at a local law firm, and I was working with a number of different lawyers. And this lawyer said to me, "Franz, you're going to have an opportunity to leave at 5 o'clock some days. Take it." And as simple as that sounds,
Right.
it was very powerful, because I was just basically staying until 7:30, 8 o'clock every evening, mostly because I felt, there's always something to do.
Mhm.
But there were times when I really, the things that I was working on were not urgent. So if you can leave at 5, just leave at 5. I always get in early. I do not believe in leaving 4:30. I don't think I've ever just walked to the office at 4:30. I always worked until 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 sometimes.
Okay.
But when the opportunity comes to leave at 5, take it
Yes.
and go home to your family, and then do your best to switch off and find a way to take what's happening at work out of your mind. And however you do that is really important.
Yeah.
I have a lot of social events that I go to 3 or 4 evenings a week, sometimes on Saturdays. But on Sundays, I really try to dedicate that to my wife and my family. Really just shut down and allow yourself to recharge, because you need it.
I love that, the fact that we have to shut down and recharge. I recently did a post to say that last Sunday I had a delicious sleep, afternoon Sunday nap.
Right.
And I said, it was so ironic for me because I grew up with the tradition that Sunday was rest day.
That's right.
And after you had your nice lunch, everybody went quiet and you go and rest. And then suddenly I was finding myself working on these different projects, etc. on Sunday. And I was like, wait a minute, but to your point, when do you recharge?
That's right.
When do you recharge? And leaders have to recharge.
Yes.
So I think that was important. So balance
Balance.
is important.
Well,
If you can go home at
recharge.
5 o'clock, go home.
Absolutely.
So let's look for Joel's question. So I think, here we go. So as someone that many would say is in the pinnacle of his career, do you have specific ways that you keep yourself growing and at your best as a leader? Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question. So we never stop learning.
Hmm.
So I read Radical Candor,
Yes.
but I also read a book recently about being an accountable manager,
Hmm.
and that is simplest saying. And I read it a few years ago, but I reread it again recently. Is that you before you ascribe blame
Mhm.
when something goes wrong, ask yourself, how did I allow that to happen? Okay,
Okay.
so you're accountable. So when something goes wrong in the civil service, I ask Franz, how did you allow that to happen? And I have a very hard look at myself. The ability to self-reflect
Mhm.
is powerful. And you should be your greatest critic.
Hmm.
You should be able to tell yourself, I didn't handle that correctly. I could have done better. And don't be afraid to say you're sorry. If you do something wrong, say it.
Hmm.
And so those are things that I continue to work on for myself. But I also watch other leaders, and today, tomorrow, or yesterday, I'm always watching and learning, because you learn things from so many different people, and there's no such thing as a perfect leader. Yeah.
Okay.
So we all have our little flaws, but we should do our best to continue to learn. So I'm looking at we're offering LinkedIn Learning at civil service now. So I'm going to take a few courses
Okay.
so that I can make sure that I am up to date with everything. But yes, we must always give ourselves opportunities to learn
Okay.
and reflect on on our performance always.
So then I have a question for you, putting you on the spot right now. Who are the leaders? It could be globally, it could be locally, regionally. Who are the leaders that you have an eye on right now?
So I when I was young, I used to admire all of these actors and things, and then I learned that what, they're just actors, right? So I don't think Clint Eastwood should be my role model, on he's a great actor, but I didn't think that was correct. But today, I constantly look at what Mr. Nelson Mandela has said over time, and how he has went from, everyone knows his story, from being in prison to being the president, and that is a very inspiring man to look at. But then I look around in Cayman. I have uncles that I admire who taught me the importance of family, taught me the importance of hard work and dedication. I have my mom, right, who still inspires me until today. I have my previous supervisors who gave me these opportunities.
Right.
So I have great leaders that I look at. I read a lot. I try to watch lots of documentaries and things, so that I get to understand leaders in the past. I always, read a lot of Winston Churchill quotes.
Okay.
He's a very dynamic and forceful leader. But yeah, so I open my mind as much as I can to learn as much as I can.
Okay. Now I'm going to pose, I think we have one more question in our QA, which I'll go to. But before I get to that, I have an interesting question to pose to you. Because one of the things over the last few weeks, I've been in dialogue with other people. It's this matter of female leadership. Because I sometimes think that when the ladies, we come to the table, so there's a struggle for us. But also, and the struggle isn't always necessarily what happens at the table, but it's an inner struggle of perception of what you should be as a female leader in comparison to your male counterparts. But then when that sometimes seems to go against who you are as a person. because maybe, and I'm happy to see that your approach of people versus and here is where you go, because sometimes females are we're taught to be a little soft and passive. So how do you see, for your female leaders, your male leaders, how they come to the table?
So from my days at immigration, the vast majority of my supervisors were women. And I saw dynamic leadership in them. The person that I told you that instilled that work ethic and with me was a woman. So I have been surrounded by amazing female leaders my entire life. I have been exposed to that. So I have great admiration for our women leaders. I'm proud to say in our civil service that 55% of our staff are female. Females are paid a bit more than males. The majority of my senior leadership team are females. What I look for is the best talent.
Right.
That's
Doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter
Male,
who
female.
it is. The very
Talent.
best talent.
Right.
And the very best fit. And that's it. And I'm very happy. My chief advisor is a female. The chief officer that I speak to on a daily basis, Victoria Nixon, is a female. I have the rest of my senior team, but those two women I'm surrounded by them every day, and they give me the very best advice that we can. I've worked with our first female governor, Ms. Helen Kilpatrick.
That's right.
Who was an amazing leader in her own right. So I think we just need to focus on outcomes and performance. If someone can do the job, then let's get on with it.
All right. So let's go to our very last audience question. And I'm just going to grab that quickly for us. So what advice do you have for an employee whose senior management team repeatedly exhibits lack of accountability by enabling, I'm going to say, rogue managers, untrustworthy people? So I guess it is, how do you, I guess they're looking at the way is it you manage up maybe sometimes, so that's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
But accountability in the civil service. Yeah.
So I think two things is that first thing is, first of all, you don't follow that lead. And obviously the person doesn't want to follow that lead.
Right.
So at all times, you display the type of leadership that you would want to be, the way that you would want to be led. And sometimes you can give what we call sort of feed forward. So you can say to your leader very carefully,
Yes, carefully.
If I had to do that, maybe I would do it this way. And the use of 360s are very important. So we have to push that across the entire civil service, where you get to give feedback on your line manager. And I think that is a way to start as well. But I have always found that sometimes people just don't realize the effect that they're having on people.
Right.
So if you want to have that brave conversation, don't approach it by saying, I think you are doing something wrong, or I think you could handle things differently. Just tell them how it made you feel.
Okay.
Because that cannot be disputed.
Right.
That's
true.
Only you
that
know
is true.
how they made you feel. So if you say to them, listen, the decision that you made yesterday, or the way you handled that, really made me feel unappreciated or not valued or uncaring. Could we have a conversation about that?
Yeah.
That I found has always been a powerful way of approaching an issue.
And it goes back to what you're looking for in your leadership too, because then it's for the self-reflection, for the leader to step back and go, okay, if I'm getting this from a member of my team, or worse yet, from several members of my team, then this is something that we have to address, that I have to address as the leader.
That's right.
Yeah.
And again, I would hope that the leaders would reflect on that as well, because if I know I am making my team feel this way, then I need to do a check. FRANZ, time to change up. trying to do things a bit
Right.
differently.
Right. So I am loving this conversation, all of the great information that we've received, and of course, excellent interviews. So people are already doing their takeaways because
really?
listen, I have mine, I always keep my
Yeah.
notes, ladies and gentlemen, it's full of pen marks, but my notes. So again, I want to say, key takeaways, at least for me, as leaders, one, we have to be those people who know to give clear, simple instructions to make sure that everybody understands their why and their purpose. It doesn't matter if it's the intern, the filing person, or your senior management team with you. People have to be clear on the why. Also, as leaders, we've got to be keeping our eye on the potential in our organization. So how are we training up our teams and even encouraging professional development of our teams so that we can move on. I think the best case of leadership is we can move on and know that there are people within that can take over the role. We also need to know what it is if we're seeking for advancement of what it is we'll do to positively get ourselves noticed. And we won't get discouraged if we're not noticed right away. But we want to make sure that we set the rules for ourselves as to how we would engage and also how we become the leaders or reflect the leaders that we would want to follow, even if that may not necessarily be the immediate example that we have. As leaders, truth in leadership, radical candor, people, radical candor. And of course, for me, a very important takeaway is this matter of, being first and the reflection, because I think that that's my struggle sometimes. So I appreciated that personally. And I've made that as a note for myself. And of course, be bold, but keep it simple. That was your vision for the civil service. Something bold, but very, very simple. And then finally, if you can go home at 5 o'clock, go home, take it. Yeah. There is, somebody always says the reason it's called work is you can go back the next day and do it. So it will still be there. So let's look at how we can get some balance in there. So I think those were some important takeaways. I'm very honored that we had this sit-down conversation.
I can't believe an hour's gone by.
It goes very, very fast. I'm getting my 5-minute cue. And so, of course, we're getting some feedback. Thanks for such thoughtful perspective on leadership. And so the comments have been popping up. People have really enjoyed having this opportunity to hear from you and also to ask questions. So for those of you who asked questions, thank you so much for participating. I mean, I can ask a lot, but I love to give you all the opportunity to do so. And we will have this video edited, and we will send out the link so you can watch this after a few weeks to be able to reflect on it again. I've always found with these master classes is that when I go and watch them again, it's like, ooh, more good stuff. Lots more nuggets of goodiness. So we'll have that link out for you. As I mentioned, this has been the finale for season 2, but we will make sure to let you know when we're getting ready for season 3. Woo, I'm saying season 3, didn't know we'd get there. And also, so big fan of Mr. Franz, your leadership style. Thank you for taking the time. I will share all of your comments to him after the masterclass, so he can see how much love and appreciation he's getting for being such a thoughtful and thought-provoking leader, and just being such a huge example, not just for the civil service, but for anybody else who's been observing what you're doing and the idea of people first. People first. Take care of your people. Take care of your team. So we have come to the end of Caribbean Masterclasses. We do have a mini retreat that we're hosting July the 5th for one day. And we are very excited about that retreat. If you're thinking about, what's next for you in terms of your professional or even personal development, this is a mini retreat you might want to consider. We do have some fabulous guests who will be coming and some specialized activities and culinary tastings and lots of greatness in there. But you can find us on Caribbean Masterclasses, and you can also find the YouTube links for previous videos under Anik Jackman. And if you want more information, you've subscribed to Caribbean Masterclasses, just send us an email and we'll be happy to respond to you and get any additional information you need. So I want to say have a fabulous night, everybody, but help me once again say a very warm, special, huge thank you to our guest this evening, the Deputy Governor, Mr. FRANZ Manderson. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And that is it. It's a wrap for Caribbean Masterclasses. See you for season 3.